Hello and welcome to Wrestling and Everything Coast to Coast with your host, Buddy Sotelo Esquire, wrestling's premier photographer, Mike Leno, and effervescent Evan Ginsberg. So, hey, it's good to have you guys back on this week. We had a schedule change with our guest and a Facebook snafu that I won't necessarily go into, but let me just quickly say fuck Zuckerberg. While I'm at it, I'm sure he's not listening to this podcast, but he won't be listening to it unless Evan posts it later. So it's good to have you on again, Mike. And I know you have a limited time to be on the podcast, and Evan and I will carry it.
My throat starts hurting. I was watching, and then I look at the credits carefully. I hadn't seen Pee-wee's Big Adventure. You guys remember? I
want to see the Pee Wee Herman as himself movie.
Yeah, that's very, very good. It's a two-parter. My wife had she was running the graphic design at a huge global company, and I guess one of the I forget if it was Paper Source or something like that did his card line, but anyway, she was in contact with Paul Rubens, and so I won't spoil the two-part documentary on HBO, but
he does die in the end.
Yeah, he battled cancer for 6 years, so that's a spoiler. But there's a lot of cool stuff. But I'm looking at the credits of his first movie. The second one, the Big Top, the circus one, wasn't as good, obviously, as the first one. Where Danny.
Yeah, but it's got one of my brother and my favorite lines, which is when the fuddy-duddy family, the country family, sees the circus move in. They go, "The circus? Why, I never." And I just thought that.
It wasn't bad, but what I was saying was I went to junior high with Danny Elfman, who did the music, and that actress.
I'm a huge fan.
Oh yeah, he does these concerts, not a lot, but he was on the most recent Coachella, or he was on a Coachella, I guess, as a past act, and on that night also Kraftwerk, the German electronica, yes. The godfathers of electronica. I gotta go. But I've seen the Danny Elfman thing.
You have to go to Coachella.
It's like blazing hot. But
you would survive probably 50
But here's my point, though, that I see Professor Toru Tanaka, who Evan and I both knew very well.
And I saw him at Polynesian Pro Wrestling. I sat right behind him at Polynesian Pro Wrestling.
Charlie Kalani was his real name for why. He really wasn't even Japanese, although he looked, exactly like Oddjob. And a couple of people have made the mistake of confusing him with the character Oddjob from Goldfinger, who was a totally different pro wrestler in his spare time. I'm spazzing on the name, pardon the use of that word. But Jason Hervey, who dated Missy Hyatt for a while, Meltzer and I sat at her table, and Jason was there the brief time they were together. He's even in the Pee-wee movie. He plays Kevin.
Yeah, the boy that takes the bike and says that, I was born ready. That's when he yells.
There's a lot of good catchphrases in both of those Pee-wee films, sort of like, I guess what's the Rodney Dangerfield, the golf movie? That's Caddyshack. That one, I think that one has more bites and references with the four brilliant comedians in that thing than even Animal House or the Pee-wee movies.
Well, but the Pee-wee movie is when I was in college, we only had a VCR, and we only had a set number of videotapes for my first year. Maybe we had, remember, videotapes used to be super expensive. And we had the Blues Brothers, and we had Jaws, we had Alien, and we had Pee Wee Herman's Big Adventure. And so we watched Pee Wee Herman's Big Adventure like 150 times in my first year.
But that's nothing. If you want a good point of reference, you have to go back to his original 1980 show HBO aired in its infancy. It was a series where they'd go around the country to different comics things. But this was at the world famous Rainbow Room, or not the Rainbow Room, but the on Sunset Boulevard, just up from the Whiskey A Go Go. It'll come to me. But that theater there, and we saw that's where he started before he was even on David Letterman. So he was kind of like a smart aleck brat, and his character changed both on the CBS morning show and all that. I don't know if you guys remember, and I'm trying to bring us back to wrestling. Before the debut of his CBS morning Pee Wee's Playhouse show, the actual show, not the off-Broadway type thing that I got to see. But anyway, there was a special CBS did the Friday night before that, and it was packed with wrestlers. Piper, Hogan, I think there was Beefcake and Valentine on there, and Wyndham and Rotunda. It was packed, and it had some other stars. I think Morgan Fairchild, who
on
played
CBS.
Yeah. It was. I taped it on VHS, so I have it someplace. You can't find it online or anything like that. But it was a promotional hour show just to promote this debut of his show the next morning, and full of wrestlers. So he's always loved pro wrestling. He and the late Phil Hartman, they all went to the Groundlings. You know, they learned comedy at the Groundlings, where so many people came out of. And Cassandra Peterson, better known as Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, she came out of there. So she plays the monster mama trucker in the Pee Wee movie,
right?
But not as Elvira. You know, different characters. So
Large Marge.
Yeah, Large. Yeah, just I don't think that was Large. Was that Large Marge? I guess it had to have been, but that's her character. So I didn't know Jason Hervey was in, because I've seen the movie a jillion times, but just tonight came on the last half hour of it, which is pretty funny. And the guy loved wrestling. You remember he was a Raw GM for a day when Vince was doing the ridiculous thing. This was the time when it was Cena stuff. So that really brings us into fold here, because that was milk toast. You know, it went from the Attitude Era, which was really fun. I think Evan still loved, and I'll shut up in a sec, WWE then. But then when it went into the PG,
not particularly.
Well, it was certainly better than the John Cena era. And I think to buttress that, it was during that period of time when McMahon had all these celebrities each Monday Raw. They were the GM for a night, like Trump.
I thought the best celebrity was the grumpy cat. I thought, paying the cat $50,000 to just sit there stunned was a great move. It was riveting. Yeah.
Actually, two very good ones were animal supporters, Betty White and Bob Barker.
You guys should watch Remembering Gene Wilder on Netflix. That's a great documentary. Yes. Very moving.
My mom was always a big fan of his.
I mean, he was a wonderful guy, great talent, original, and everybody just loved him. And they talk about his tragic marriage to Gilda Radner, who died at 43 or 44. And later he got Alzheimer's, and it was rough for his second wife. And a very moving film, and a lot of great clips of him. And just a good guy and an original talent. So I really recommend it, Remembering Gene Wilder.
Yeah. Do you have any Pee Wee Herman thoughts at all, Evan?
I always liked him. I didn't watch him religiously. I appreciated, he was unique. And, I always liked that. I mean, I'm like Mike. I grew up on Bob McAllister and Soupy Sales and later Uncle Floyd. Uncle Floyd had a huge cult following in New York, New Jersey. And in college, we watched Uncle Floyd. So even though it was technically a kid's show, it had this cult following, and he would do live shows that were really tremendously fun. And then he was in that Letterman slot at, right after the Tonight Show, and it bombed. He was like too hip for the room. Plus, they tried to water him down. So, Pee Wee was right in that whole, kind of universe with these really, hip kid shows that were just as much for the adults, if not more so. And it's a shame that he's gone. Uncle Floyd's still out there. He still plays gigs, but he never again hit that big time. You know,
He was
still
the he was the horror host first, right?
no, no, no,
No. Who
no.
was the famous?
You're
I'm
thinking of
thinking.
Count Floyd, which was from
No, that was
SCTV.
you're thinking of the SCTV, but I'm thinking of there was a guy who was a famous horror host that Howard Stern idolized in the New York area in the '60s.
Zachary.
Yeah, Zachary. Was he
Zachary's
a
a
big deal?
totally different guy. Yeah, the horror hosts, were great also. They were campy.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah.
We had Bob Wilkins here in the Bay Area. Mike Leno probably.
Right. Creature Features.
Yes, you probably met him, and
Yeah,
Bob
no, I
Stanley.
had him on the show. I brought him on with Evan, the second guy. The first originator guy passed, and Bob Wilkins, I think, was the second.
Yeah,
Was the
Stanley,
second
Paul
banana.
Stanley, not Paul Stanley, Mike Stanley.
Was the originator, and Wilkins was the second, and he put out a book, and I had him on with Evan, and we talked about, all around the country. I still watch, even though a lot of them are repeats, Svengoolie, because that's kind of what we loved in the 60s and 70s. And the funny thing was Elvira took over from a guy who we idolized in L.A., the master of the macabre, Seymour, and the world's first Halloween amusement park event occurred at Knott's Berry Farm, and I was there. They did just 2 shows, and Seymour was the guy that hosted it. And anyway, long story short, so he was awesome. He kind of did a lot of this stuff. That was the very first time anywhere, not at Disneyland or Disney World or any of these Six Flags, that they have a Halloween themed event, where they had hired hundreds of employees to try to scare you. But the following year after that, he got caught drunk on the job. They replaced him with Cassandra Peterson as Elvira. She went on to become a global.
Yeah, that's a big twist right there.
But we liked him a lot better initially than her, and then of course, she's showing boobage and all the stuff that kids like. So she soon got very, very powerful. And she's had 2 books. I mean, she's got to be, and she's a staple at horror shows.
80, I think, almost. She's
Sandra, really?
Yeah, I think she's maybe very late 70s to early 80s.
I'm jumping around, but that's before my time is up. Only because my voice is going to give out. Is Cyndi Lauper sang the theme song to Pee Wee's Playhouse, the Sunday morning show, of course. Rick Derringer just died, who I'm looking at who introduced him to the music world.
J.J. McGuire.
No, is Edgar Winter and the Winter Brothers Band. They debuted the Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo thing. He was like a sessions player for them. When he passed, I'm watching that, and I'm coming back to Cyndi Lauper and WWF or E because Evan and I have talked for decades. And I think we even said to her face she belonged in the both the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the WWF Hall of Fame when Evan and I interviewed her at the Virgin Megastore, the debut opening. Remember, Ev?
Yeah,
I will
San
never
Francisco.
forget how nice she was, and she put up with us, because her gig was hours later. She had nothing better to do than talk to us, and we just peppered her with wrestling questions. Albana, Piper, and Vince.
Yeah, I printed that in my old newsletter, the interview with her. Yeah,
that was amazing, and I sing her praises.
And it was spontaneous. We weren't scheduled to do it. We just asked her, and she went, sure.
Oh, she was nice and so gracious, beautiful. Great singer.
She's on tour now. She plays major arenas.
But she's finally getting her due. She's going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame finally, way after she deserved it years and years and years ago. Even though it's a political bullshit, as John Fogerty rightly said, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is just. I think
first of all, if you ask me, they should just change the name from Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to the Modern Music Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
It should just be all-encompassing.
I don't know if there's is there an R&B Hall of Fame?
Yes, there's an R&B Hall of Fame, and there's a million Hall of Fames, and it's very ignorant when people rage against the R&B musicians and the rap artists who go into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and that's not rock and roll. Music is all branches from the same tree. They're all cousins. The DNA of hip hop is James Brown and Roger Troutman and George Clinton from Parliament Funkadelic, and it's all connected. So
and Southern black roots in, rock and roll. I mean, you can't really take that out of it, from the Chuck Berry stuff to, the Muddy Waters to the, some of the really old, soul music being, incorporated by Elvis and other, even gospel stuff.
a lot of people say that the first rock and roll song was Rocket 88 by Ike Turner, 1951, which came before Elvis. And Little Richard and these guys were doing it all before Elvis. Not that I didn't like Elvis. Early Elvis was great. And, Elvis acknowledged these guys. Elvis respected the R&B musicians. And, the modern spin is, Culture Bandit. Elvis acknowledged all these guys. Elvis used to sneak into clubs and watch all the great R&B acts, and he was just more palatable to a racist society at that time than a Chuck Berry or a Little Richard or a Bo Diddley or any of these innovators, an Ike Turner. So it is what it is. But when you hear old white guys today ranting against rappers, even to the point where they go, it's not music. They got rappers who are playing with full orchestras now. How could you say it's not music? When Public Enemy and these acts tour, they have live musicians on stage. How could you say it's not music? It's just ignorant. Come on.
I was going to say one thing I caught, Ev, I'm sure you hopefully you caught it, is a brand new 2-hour docu on funk, but it's on PBS. They're only playing it during Pledge.
I haven't seen it yet. I still haven't seen the Sly Stone documentary, which is supposed to be great.
The Questlove did that one.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much. I mean, it's a golden age for documentaries, but unfortunately, you could put thousands of hours and a lot of money into documentaries, and for the most part, it's very hard to make money on a documentary. And I'm going to be announcing a documentary that I'm going to be producing shortly, and good luck raising the money and making a profit on the film, but you do it because your heart is in it and you need to do it. So
just do the GoFundMe route. Seems to be the way for folks to go.
Yeah, but
there's so many causes, I mean,
GoFundMes and Kickstarters and Indiegogos, crowdfunding is a art in and of itself. It's I've seen quality wrestling films raised next to nothing, and I've seen Nigel McGuinness and the ECW films raise 40 or 50,000. So knowing and having the tech savvy to do a quality GoFundMe, that's a project prior to the project. It's very challenging unless you have money to burn, and or you don't care if you lose money or just break even. And you don't go into making documentaries to get rich. Let's put it that way. And the few that do, they're really the exception to the rule. Roger, what's his name? The political documentarian.
Moore.
Roger Moore. Isn't that James Bond?
No.
Michael Moore.
Michael
Moore. Yeah. Michael Moore is one of the few that, his name will sell a documentary. And it's not, Morgan Spurlock just died probably from the stress of it all. He just died young.
Well, remember, how long did he eat nothing but McDonald's food for this first?
God knows what.
For a month. Just for a month.
For a month, but still, it was enough. I think that's what did him in. And before I forget, because
allegedly, McDonald's.
Allegedly, yeah, we don't want to badmouth one of our.
Actually, have you seen the movie where he and his wife live on a minimum wage for a month?
I didn't see that.
It's one of the most depressing movies you'll ever see in your entire life. It's
Good.
terrible.
Here was where Pee-wee's it was called the Pee-wee Herman Show. It debuted at the Roxy Theater, so we were there for that. And Richard Dawson took his sons and I to the very first opening event at the Roxy Theater on Sunset Boulevard. It came straight over from England. Jack Nicholson and his producer pal, I can't think of the name, but you probably will know who I'm talking about, brought it over from England, the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah.
Tim Curry, Meatloaf, and pretty much most of the movie cast. Obviously, the guy that played Riff Raff, who wrote the whole thing to begin with. I didn't know at the time, but I don't know if you ever saw the play before the movie came out. We, of course, went to the movie, but the movie music sucked in comparison, because they had non-singer Susan Sarandon, who was obviously gorgeous, in there. But the play was amazing, and I have the cast album. And if you compare it to the movie, it's more upbeat, faster, pretty much all the same players. And the narrator wasn't a British guy, but instead, Evan will know this, Mary Hartman, the guy that was married to the bald guy with the mustache that was married to Mary Kay Place's country character. He was the narrator, and he ended up wearing lingerie at the end of the thing. It was the craziest play we'd ever seen, and that was like 73 when they brought it on over. But that was at the Roxy Theater.
Yeah, they weren't going to let a 6-year-old version of me go to go attend the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
We used to go see Rocky Horror at midnight in Greenwich Village in New York. It was wild.
But this was way before that. And so the two female leads, Lil Nell that played the spunky one that did all the dancing, and then Magenta, they were like crawling around on the floor, and then they would like get in your lap and coddle you. This was before the play started. I don't know if they did that every night, but they did that on opening night. And Mark and Gary Dawson and I were just teenagers, and we have these gals in our lap, and it was like, I don't know, it was crazy. It was fun. Crazy stuff. Anyway, so I will let you guys have at the show.
Mike, did you hear about Ron Killings and Carlito being let go?
Yeah, RTruth, got fired.
What? But they were in separate. I mean, they were in Carlito was in a separate group. That's bad enough. But why did Ron Killings, who just did the favor to Cena and did a great job of it on whatever
Lost
the
too
show.
Much. The WWE is barely making it.
That's bullshit. They're a billion-dollar company. The only reason they can brag about these grosses is not because of heightened attendance. It's because they've jacked up the money. They're doing 2 nights now of SummerSlam, so pretty much their core 4 pay-per-views will at some point be 2 nights. Saturday, Sunday. That is despicable. Ron Killings, who I had no idea, so I'm pissed. You can see
so
somebody
it's the first time the wrestlers themselves are saying that TKO is ruthless. And I've been saying that forever. And I've been saying WWE is ruthless, and the fanboys, the corporate apologists, like our buddies at the other podcast who always attack us, the corporate apologists, they're in denial. Oh, they all do it. It's all about the bottom line.
I mean, look at what they did to like Mickey James, and put all her
she was
stuff.
let go from LFG, Legends and Future Greats, and she was a great coach in that. She's very sweet. She's like motherly. She really, really.
They put all of her stuff into a trash bag and like threw it onto the curb.
That was the first firing, but she just got fired. She's been coach for the LFG show on Sunday nights that just had its season finale like 2 weeks ago, and it was just announced that she was even let go. So this was like a second or third letting go. I don't get it. Did they give any reason for why Ron Killings and Carlito were let go?
Oh, they just said they're not renewing their contract. They didn't.
And their best of their future endeavors.
It's just simply cost cutting, and you know,
In the
But he's
weakest
more
way
entertaining.
possible.
He's been with that company now that the Undertaker, is fully retired. Ron Killings is the next guy who's been with that company the longest, like 20 some odd years.
Triple H probably earns in 3 months what R-Truth earns in like an entire year. And so instead of someone like
Actually,
Triple H,
a lot more than
1 week.
that.
Yeah, I think Triple
yeah,
H in 1 week makes more than what Ron Killings
maybe
made
it's
in a year.
maybe true. So, but you don't see them saying to Triple H, well, maybe we could pay you a little less, so we keep some talent on. No, it's always let's fire the talent. We'll find someone else that's young enough and desperate enough to
Well,
take
wait.
his
The
place.
fucked up thing was that talent was always on eggshells, particularly the last 5 years with Vince.
They
Always
still
on
are.
eggshells, nervous. So now that he's gone, things improve with Hunter. However, the new parent company, now they're back to being on eggshells. They're spiraling
Exactly.
for no reason at all. It's
Exactly. Well, it's the reason is they paid Vince McMahon $8 billion, and that money has to come back somehow. And these guys want that deficit erased tomorrow if they could. So they're going to squeeze everything out of it so that they paid off the $8 billion ahead of time, and then they can move on with their lives and making pure profit, which is what they want.
Let me just say something maybe to our audience. If people could chime in on this, maybe Russ, you could give your email at the end of the show, or however you want folks to
No,
contact.
you can comment on the YouTube page where I
Okay,
monitor it
but
all the time.
but uh, in terms of well, comment on that, and there's some other things that I'll bring up like next week. So next week I'm excited because I really like the referee documentary. I'm excited about what Evan's going to be doing because it's always going to be good, like his prior documentaries. And well, that really upsets me about Ron Killings. There's not a nicer guy.
I brought Ron Killings into the wrestler.
Yeah,
Great guy, talented. He added to the film, and
they should have let him go back heel because he's a tremendous heel. People forget some of the stuff, particularly in TNA, that he did as a heel.
Well, you'll probably get one more shot in AEW because that's, where retired WWE, fired
Well, yeah,
WWE.
but TNA as well. I did go to the TNA LA, whatever the thing was called. It was Resurgence, headline with it was the three-way. Joe Hendry defended his title against Frankie Kazarian, and I can't even remember who the other guy was. But that's when Trick Williams interfered at the end, and it was tremendous. I hadn't been to a TNA show since like one headline by it was a house show in San Francisco, RVD against Booker T around 2008 or something like that.
I'm going in July. They have it in New York, the TNA.
I was impressed. Huge crowd. It was packed, and the crowd was rabid. Right at the USC campus, you couldn't find parking anywhere. It was a nightmare. It took a lot of us an hour to find parking, but boy, Tommy Dreamer, super nice guy, and then Ice Cube's son, who has his own podcast, really super nice guy. I'm already texting with him, and the TNA, there is on a positive. I will let you guys go, even with the problems with WWE, and hopefully AEW is having some more longer storylines. And I can't get enough of Toni Storm. She's
great.
Boy, she's incredible, effing incredible. And even though Mercedes' promos really suck, she's still doing that generic shit. Toni Storm more than makes up for it, with everything that she does. She and Ospreay, they are the face of that company for me. So I will leave you with that. So it's never been a better time, although it gets exhausting. I can't get a lot of stuff done because there's effing wrestling on every night. Thank God I get a break from the A&E blocks with the LFG, which Mickey James just got canned from on Sunday. So you at least get one day where there's no wrestling. So
I know, whoever thought that would be the case. It used to be there only was one day a week the wrestling was on, and now it's like hard to
I
go.
tell you the thing that I do miss. There was nothing more exciting. You never knew at the height from like 1978 on at Georgia Championship Wrestling. Evan will remember. You never knew what was going to happen. Like Mark Lewin and Abdullah the Butcher could come in, And then Dusty Rhodes twice had 2 surprise boxes. The first one had George the Animal Steele, Jim Myers. The second had Mad Dog Vachon in it, come out to be his babyface tag partners. You never knew what the F was going to happen on that show. Flair would just pop in for this was before the whole Black Saturday and before Jim Crockett brought it back. Georgia Championship Wrestling, I think, was perhaps the greatest weekly wrestling show ever. And I visited almost all the territories. I saw their TVs, like Hawaii's TV in the early 70s.
Now, I did look forward to when Mid-South was finally available here in the Bay Area.
Mid-South was effing great. Yeah, there's no denying. But at a time, for a time, there was Georgia Championship on Saturdays at 6:05, and then Sundays at 6:05 was Mid-South.
And I wouldn't miss it. Whatever I was doing at 3:05, it was 3:05.
Yeah, it was 3:05 on the West Coast.
Yeah, on the West Coast. I made sure on Sundays I was because that was in the days before VCRs, when VCRs were so available, and tapes. Remember, tapes cost $1 million. Like they cost like $50 a blank tape.
I still was taping it. Like I've taped every Academy Award. I had an old Betamax, so from about 76 on, taped every Academy Awards. I no longer do it because it's not worth it anymore.
And nobody cares.
Yeah, I stopped doing it when Billy Crystal's very last time hosting because he was the greatest.
Mike, when are you going to watch any of this stuff again? Are you going to live to age 200 so you can watch all this stuff over again that you have taped?
Well, it is fun when you pull back, like the first day.
You don't have enough time to watch all the new stuff. You were just telling us how you don't have any time to watch any of the new stuff. How are you going to watch 1,000 hours of old stuff?
Yeah, the very first day of MTV with all the MTV boss jocks, I taped that 6 hours of it from the start with the video killed the radio star, that first video on.
When are you going to watch any of it? When are you going to watch any of it?
Who knows?
I sent Mike my entire prize 70s porn collection.
There were some good movies. I mean, there was boxing movies and there were some classics and documentaries. There was all kinds of stuff. It wasn't just that on Beta.
You'd have to live to be age 200 to watch all this stuff over again.
Well, now I can't because I have like blocks. Thank God. Remember when there was Friday nights, you had 2 hours of SmackDown and you get 2 hours of Collision or a Rampage, or if they moved the Collision onto Friday night because of Saturday pay-per-view, you had 3 hours of AEW, 2 hours of WWE on the same effing night. It's just humanly impossible to watch all that stuff without taping and watching it later, unless you're
it's humanly impossible to care about all that stuff.
Well, you should be caring, Russ. Russ, you have to watch Toni Storm on AEW, please.
Yeah, I do. I do appreciate what she has to offer. But some of it, like, some of the interview segments, especially with AEW, I find they sometimes can be even worse than the WWE as far as like not.
There is no better heel on planet Earth than MJF when he's by himself.
He's good. But a lot of the other lower echelon guys
maybe not
chew on the mic. They're not very good.
But they're getting better. Will Ospreay now is a must-listen-to promo. He's got a lot of passion. He was not, because he didn't have to do that in New Japan or England. He didn't have to do that at all. He's really stepped up his game. I think surpassing Omega in terms of promos. There's some good folks on there. Hangman Page does a fantastic promo.
What is Omega's title over there? There's so many titles I can't keep track of.
Yeah, that one I'm forgetting what that one is too, because it's not the one that Orange Cassidy had.
The European title?
No, it's the Continental. I think it's not the Intercontinental, but the Continental title.
So what is Okada's title?
But maybe that's
the other one. You remember it was
the other Continental title.
It was the one that was longer. The one that Omega was renamed. It was like it's crazy. It was sort of like a television.
We watch this stuff. We can't keep track of it. How's anybody supposed to keep track of this?
If you ask me, like TNA, I'm going to have a hard time. As well. All right, guys. I'm going to let you go.
You put $1 million cash in front of me. I could have named the WWE titles or the AEW titles.
Maybe we should have a listener on, and without notes because we would pick a promotion like New Japan that they have to get these things right. It's a gauntlet of the various titles. New Japan has quite a few titles too, the never open weight and all of these
Okay,
insane things.
thanks to Google, I can tell you guys that right now the current AEW title holders are Jon Moxley, who's the AEW World Champion. Tony Storm was the AEW Women's Champion. Mercedes Moné is the AEW TBS Champion. The Hurt Syndicate is the World Tag Team. Kenny Omega is the AEW International Champion.
Adam Cole, the TNT title.
Yeah, Adam Cole is the AEW TNT Champion.
I have no idea.
The Ops are the AEW World Trios Champion. And Okada is the AEW Continental Champion. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 championships.
And then the crazy thing is WWE now is making like the North American title in NXT. There was always just a male. Now they have an NXT, Northern American one for women, and they're doing that, I think, with the titles and the pay-per-views as well on a regular main roster. So
they should have a corporate vulture title over there, a future endeavor title.
The ass kiss title, please. That's one that's already been.
Mariah May would get the award for that. She was just fawning over Triple H. Oh my God, it was disgraceful.
Well, she wants into, reportedly she's supposed to be, it's not fully confirmed, going to WWE, which is a shame because the one that they brought in that was also kind of a big monster to go against Tony Storm kind of is not even as good. Mariah May was a great wrestler. Really, really good. And
hopefully you're feeling up for next week. Save your
I'll be
voice.
up for next week, guys.
Put everything on ice, and we'll hopefully see you next week. And be well, man.
Very nice, guys. Good night.
Good night. So what's interesting is that we were upset that RTruth has been let go, but none of the three of us seem to give a damn that Carlito was let go.
He had been gone for years, and he was sort of in a guest starring, screw job finish role.
Yeah, no, and I think that RTruth had endeared himself to a lot of folks. Well, I mean, he's close to being my age. I mean, he's like 54 or something like that.
Yeah, he's in better shape though.
Oh, yeah, he is. Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not getting in the ring and taking those kind of bumps. I'm amazed that anyone over 50 gets into the ring for any reason other than to cut a promo or to make an announcement.
I just interviewed Chris Michaels today. I was over his place. He's a good friend, and in case you don't know him, he was an early ECW champ when Eddie Gilbert was booking pre Paul Lee and pre Paul Heyman, and so I'm interviewing him, and he's 63 and he still wrestles. And,
wow.
On the indies, and I saw him in a Wild Brawl live a couple months back, and they were really clobbering each other. And 63. He stays in good shape, and he loves it. And very, very, very part-time. He doesn't do this, several times a week, anything like that. But he just loves it. And his dog just had a major surgery, and he's out like $7,000. He's going to do a GoFundMe. So when that happens, we'll announce it. But
that's terrible.
Yeah, 7,000. Yeah, but dogs are like kids. Cats are.
Yeah, no, you now are more aware of what your cats mean to you. And it would be tough with that with our dog too, because he's getting older also. Fortunately, with your cats, they're so young. So, you're going to have, like, hopefully another at least 10 years of, maybe 12 years or 15 years.
Cats supposedly live 13 to 20 years, and they're only 1 year old. So I'd like to think, they'll be around. They might outlive me. Who knows? But, we'll see. Time will tell. But Yeah, especially if you don't have kids, like if you don't have kids, the pets are like your kids. It's
But even when
even
you
if,
do have kids,
yeah, they're like a
they
kid.
become such a treasured part of the kid. They become friends of the kids. The kids are so especially my daughter and my dog are just absolutely intertwined with each other all the time. But one thing that's a little different than your cats is that my dog, boy, does he shed. I mean, I don't know about your cats, but
Oh,
like,
cats constantly shed.
yeah, we're getting to the point that there was more fur in this house than people. It was over the weekend I had to vacuum up like about a pound of dog hair from everywhere. But so yeah, I know that it's we got a little bit of a late start on the show, but I just wanted to see what was on your mind wrestling wise about anything. There was that story. Not that Linda McMahon is still involved in wrestling because she and Vince are not. She sent she wants to get rid of, or she is getting rid of the Department of Education and Harvard. She wrote a letter to Harvard, and Harvard sent the letter back, and they made all these corrections, grammatical corrections on it. So that's something for you. And then, have you heard the rumor that Vince wants to try to repurchase the WWE back again?
I heard that, and I don't know. I mean, I don't think. To me, 90% of what Vince pumped out was crap, and to me, maybe 80% of what Triple H pumps out is instantly forgettable vanilla pablum. So, if that makes Triple H slightly better, it's no great accomplishment when you have $1 billion, budget behind you and all the tech wizardry and a great roster, and you're basically a pimple on the ass of Crockett Promotions back in the day. Any Philly NWA house show back in the 80s was better than any WrestleMania, and I don't care if people disagree. I was there, and
those cards were, now that you look at it, those cards were concentrated with great matches from top to bottom. I mean, they had maybe 9 matches on a card or 6 matches on a card. Yeah, usually 6 or 7 matches on a card. And so each one of those, maybe the one match at the very start was some kind of like squash match or something that wasn't all that great. But otherwise, you saw guys that were, Hall of Famers in every match all the way up. Whereas the WWE, to make 2 days worth of matches, you're gonna have you have to have matches that are totally forgettable. It's impossible to have 2 days worth of matches and say every single moment that you're going to be watching for 2 days is just going to be wow, 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 wow.
I think the issue is they slapped together even WrestleMania. They were still booking a week or two before, and it's all about the entrances, the overwrought entrances. Every mannerism, every expression is rehearsed, and it's both nights of WrestleMania there were 2 or 3 matches that were worth seeing. And
wouldn't you rather see one show that just had good matches than 2 nights worth of shows that you have to really sift through all this chaff to find the wheat that you feel like watching? And that's why to be honest with you, I don't watch WrestleManias now till they're done. I wait to hear people say how bad a lot of the matches are, and those ones, when I watch, I fast forward because I know it's going to be a crappy match, and I don't want to watch somebody in a headlock for 25 minutes, or even worse, just a promo and showing highlights of what already happened in the last match, 2 or 3 times sometimes, as a build up before they finally get to the point, And
I think you should be the one to review WrestleMania for the mainstream publications. I sifted through the chaff to reach the wheat, says Buddy Sotelo.
Thank you. Yes, I've said that many times. Sure.
I think that would be beautiful. It's poetic.
Or I've sifted out the stems and seeds to get to the buds of the of the weed plant. You know.
Or I would be quoted as, it was stultifyingly numb until Cody or somebody came out.
I was callously awakened from my delicate slumber.
I fought off sleep until Asuka came out.
Yeah, and it's sad that we feel that way, because I just remember, like, especially in the early days of like Saturday Night's Main Event and the early days of Raw, when they were in the theater in New York, that downtown theater in New York, those were wild shows. Those were like, the WWF had the ability to do things that were exciting at one point. Not everything was schlock, They would have stuff that I would look forward to. I mean, the early days of Saturday Night's Main Event, were really something that was like an event in college. Like, we would all like get together and, break out the beers and make it a viewing thing. Again, mainly because back then nobody recorded stuff. You didn't have the ability to like watch it back on, on demand or anything like that. I mean, we've sort of lost that ability where you can watch anything whenever you want, kind of thing. And, for a lot of us here in California and on the West Coast, a lot of things, when you don't watch it live, get spoiled immediately by people on the East Coast, and I blame all you East Coasters for watching The Walking Dead and often spoiling whatever the hell was happening on The Walking Dead before.
Oh yeah, I'll never forget. I was watching the one season and somebody post, "The governor died." Like, what's the point in watching?
Worse was when this guy on the East Coast that was a friend of mine posted, who knew that Sophie was in the barn the whole time?
Yeah, you're waiting like 2 years to find out what happens to her, and then somebody does a spoiler.
Yes, and I was like, oh my God, couldn't you have just waited for like maybe, another hour or something like that? And the West Coast, everybody on the West Coast wouldn't be spoiled on that feed, but nobody cares, on social media. They just blurt it out.
I want you to know I'm a huge Walking Dead mark, and I've been watching the spin-offs, and in the second season of the Daryl Dixon spin-off, they have a flashback to Sophie coming out of the barn. And it's really powerful, because I think that was the most devastating moment in the history of that show. It was brutal.
No, it was Carl's wife. Carl's mom being killed by Carl. That because she was bitten, and down in the sewers, and he had to shoot her, keep her from turning into.
That was rough, but they were looking and looking and looking for this poor girl, and you figured they were finally going to find her, and she's a walker, and she's about to kill her own mother, and oh my God, that was rough. It was rough.
And there's the Look at the Flowers episode with Carol telling that little girl who gets bitten to look away, while she takes a gun and shoots her in the back of the head. Yeah. The Walking Dead, the interesting part about The Walking Dead was the first series was only 8 episodes, because they thought people were going to hate it so much that they didn't want to put too much money into it in case it flopped. And of course, then there was same thing with the Fallout TV show, which I don't know if you've seen yet.
Never saw it.
It was a big hit last year, but they now are filming 2 seasons worth of shows because there was such a huge demand. They underestimated what a huge demand there was.
What's it about?
Fallout is based on a series of video games, and at first people go, "Oh boy, it's gonna suck." But we've seen. I don't know if you've seen The Last of Us either, but
I saw 1 or 2 episodes. I never really finished it.
Okay, well, I like The Last of Us too, but Fallout is a post-apocalyptic type of society. Yeah, it's a show about these people that emerge after there's been a nuclear war, which sort of stunts America in like this high-tech version of the 50s. It's like the culture doesn't move on from the 50s, but they have all these like high-tech, devices and weapons, but they're all kind of steampunkian, like they look really old-fashioned, but they do really high-tech things. And it's these people are stuck in these vaults. They come out and they see the world as it's been all irradiated and stuff like that. There's a lot of drama between people who live in different vaults and the people who live on the outside, and the remaining levels of the government and different societies that come up through the hundreds of years when there's been no other, official government. So what happens out in the wasteland and all this stuff. And I love it because the video game itself I've been playing for like over 20 years, and there's quite a cult following of it. But I think they treated the material with a lot of respect, and that's why it was a good show. It's just not something that's slapped together like the Borderlands movie or something like that. I don't know if you saw that one, but that was horrible. So anyway, but not that has anything to do with wrestling. I don't think there are any wrestlers, ex-wrestlers in the Fallout TV show. But if you run out of stuff to watch, that's one I highly recommend. So, do you have any movies you recommend for our fans while we have a moment here? Other than the one we're going to see next week.
Yeah, the refs didn't see it, which we're going to talk about next week. Remembering Gene Wilder. I haven't seen much else lately because, unfortunately, I invested a lot of time in the New York Knicks, who got blown out yesterday.
Right. Well, that's true. Yeah. Now you're out of school, and now that you're out of the sports season, you're not a huge baseball fan or anything like that. I never gathered that you were. So you'll have this summer to catch up on a lot of stuff. So hopefully you'll have an opportunity then. So, but otherwise, I think we might want to just wrap things up. If there's anything else that's on your mind, we got a little bit of a late start on the show, so.
Yeah, check out 350 Days. Check out Wrestling Then and Now. Check out my homepage. We constantly have wrestling content. Evan Ginsberg's Old School Wrestling Memories. I'm getting rid of a lot of stuff, trying to downsize because the two cats have taken over the entire house. And
yeah, I can see their running wheel behind you.
Yeah. So I'm doing wrestling grab bags, $30, including postage, and I'm guaranteeing 2 or more signed Legends photos and all kinds of clippings and just a bunch of stuff stuffed in an envelope, and I think it'll be well worth it to avid wrestling fans, including very rare clips, original clips that you would never find anywhere else. And you could contact me through this show or whatnot. And basically downsizing because I have more years behind me than I do ahead of me, and I don't want to die with all this stuff. Thank you. You've been a good audience.
Yes. No, it's cool that you share it, and maybe there's some fans who are big collectors, and they'll really appreciate the stuff that you have.
I could guarantee they won't have some of these clips. I mean, these are rare clips going back decades, and it's just I have so much stuff, and I live in a 1-bedroom co-op, so it's we just.
Here's a question for you. If someone had something that they really wanted, like they were a huge Bruno Sammartino fan or something like that, and they said, "Do you have, anything from Bruno that you are willing to part with?" Is that something?
Well, I wouldn't throw in a signed Bruno picture in a $30 grab bag. But,
no, but if people wanted that to buy that from you,
it's interesting because I've pretty much come to the conclusion that I would sell almost anything except the stuff that has great sentimental value. Like if I was at a show and I have a program, whether it's signed or not, I probably wouldn't sell it. But if it was something else from that era and I wasn't there and it doesn't have the personal attachment and memories to it, I don't think I would. And it's not like there's a desperate need for cash, so it's not even about that.
Just to get rid of it and to get some room.
I mean, it's the same thing with, I have a world-class jazz autograph collection and R&B autograph collection, and I don't think I would sell it. It might be different if someone said, I'll give you a huge amount of money and we'll put it in a museum and many people will enjoy it. That's possible, but I met these people. I lived through it. It would be hard to part with some of it. That's basically the answer.
All right. Well, maybe if there's someone that has a burning need for, desire and burning hole, hey, look, I'd rather them spend money on you than at the next WrestleMania event.
Well, I'm asking $30, not $30,000.
Exactly. But even if they have $30,000 for WrestleMania, I'd rather them spend it on memorabilia from your house than giving it to Triple H and his cronies. So,
Now, there was an interesting study years ago. I talk about it pretty often. They did a scientific study with data, and they said that money in and of itself will not make you happy. So, for example, you get a $5,000 raise, and after taxes, let's say it's $3,000. Okay. So you have a little more money in your pocket. It's nice, but it's not going to be the difference between being happy and not being happy. They said where money can make you happy is, let's say you were really, really choking on bills and all of a sudden you tripled your salary. Now you have that stress off of you, and that's life-changing. That could make you happier.
Or if you use it to help somebody that, then, means something to you. If you're able to help family members out or, loved one out with that money, then that's something that can infuse you with, and that's why it is good to have like a guy like Chris Jericho, that throws money to the GoFundMes in a lot of these cases when wrestlers don't. But we, see a guy like Brian Knobs, clinging to life, and no sign that Hulk Hogan, with all the money he makes, is doing anything to help his friend, and so it's when you see how money is spent, money as a means to an end, I have no problem with. Money as an end to itself is something I've never been a big fan of.
Well, I think in this culture, it's really flipped over the years. I mean, I'm older than you, and back in the day, it was fight the man. You didn't want to be the man.
It's
Today,
true.
Then even when Do the Right Thing came out, Spike Lee, fight the power. Today, people want to be the power. Even the rappers, not all. I don't want to be one of these assholes that generalize, but some are preaching materialism. Even Mercedes Moné, everything, money. It's
that reminds me is that the Grateful Dead cover group, the Dead and Co, is doing a 3-day festival out here. You know what standard tickets are going for the 3-day festival?
$300.
$900.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
And you can get the super extra deluxe seats for
$1,500, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000.
Try $55,000.
What do you get for $55,000?
Apparently, they will dig Jerry Garcia up from the grave and wire him up electronically in front of you, so he'll perform in front of you. I have no idea what they could do for 3 days, $55,000. Again, unless you're in a time machine and take me right back to the '60s or the early '70s. I don't think there's anything you can do for that. And it's crazy. And so this guy, I posted that and said how crazy it is. And this one guy, this is on Blue Sky, I'm not on Facebook anymore, but this guy came up to me and said, posted back to me and said, "You're a lawyer. You make so much money." And he doesn't know how much money I make. "You should be more than happy to spend this money to go see the greatest band of all time." Now, I went and saw Dead and Co. At Oracle Park a couple years ago, and I paid like $100 to see them. So, granted, it's not a 3-day festival. I'm 57 years old. I can't go to 3 days worth of rock and roll music anymore. I can't. I'm 4 hours is like fine for me. Isn't it for you at this stage? I mean, what are you going to do at a 3-day rock and roll festival other than eat, medicated gummies and lie on your back, for most of the time?
I could go to like Jazz Fest in New Orleans for a couple of days, and
but that's different. That's going from like restaurant to restaurant to restaurant. You're not going to sit in Golden Gate Park for 3 days and camp out,
you wouldn't be camping. You would spend many hours, a couple of days in a row at Jazz Fest. But I just don't like to feel like my pocket has been picked. I'll give you an example. A buddy of mine says to me, he picked up tickets for the Who in New York in August, $109. I'm like, well, it's half the Who, the other, and I'm sure it'll be good. I don't know. I mean, is it worth $109? I don't know.
For me, 109, that's not too bad, but nearly $1,000, and with that's for like the hoi polloi. That's for like the unwashed that are going to stand around in the general admission area. And if you want seats or like an actual like place where you sit down, that's like $3,000. So, I mean, it's just crazy. What I'm saying is, and it's not like the Grateful Dead and Co. Those guys are just barely making it, and they've just barely, made enough money and are scraping by, and this is going to go help a good cause. They've made, hundreds of millions of dollars over the years, probably, all summed up, with all the music and all the royalties, everything like that. And it's just this constant just grab at a huge amount of money. And then just for someone to say, well, you're just a lawyer, so you're a lawyer, you make too much money, so you should just be able to spend money like that. It just, to me, is what's wrong with society. It's just people aren't looking at something for the value of it. They're looking at, oh, do you have money to throw away? Then you can throw it away. Don't worry about the value of it. Just spend it because you have money.
I think it's very disillusioning that young people become corporate apologists, and it's all about the bottom line. It's business. You're naive. You're a child. You don't understand. They all do it. No. There are business people who are honorable and charitable and not, taking with both hands. And I am a lover of music. I've been to thousands and thousands of concerts. I've seen the greatest musicians in history. I never spent more than $80 at a concert. I saw Stevie Wonder do 4.5 hours at Madison Square Garden. I'm just never going to have my pocket picked. I don't care. It's just, and when you see some aging rock band with half their members dead, and they want $900 a ticket or whatnot, it's like, no, thank you. And even if they're in their prime, like a Beyonce, and the average ticket is $800, I'm not paying $800.
Yeah, Taylor Swift, people were spending like $1,500 into general admission. It's just insane. And people are doing it. not because they love the stars so much. It's because they want to be at the event. They want to be able to say they were there in the event, and people are sparing no dollar for that. And it's just, I think back about a lot of the lower price concerts I went to, and what a great time I had. But it wasn't because I was at the event. It was because I was seeing a band that I really followed and really cared about. And, it's the same thing in wrestling now, too. I mean, you'd say that people are going to WrestleMania because they love John Cena or because they love The Undertaker or whatever. You just pointed out a couple of shows ago that people are sitting there looking at it on their phone because they can't see it because they're so darn far away. So that's not going there to see your favorite wrestler live. It's to say that you were there at a WrestleMania. And that to me is a different thing, and I don't get it, and I don't think I ever will. But anyway, we're at the hour, so I again, it's always our personal therapy session to be able to talk about all this stuff. And next week we are going to have your guest again. Just give a quick plug out for him.
Colin Hunter, the producer of The Ref Didn't See It, quality documentary about referees, and there's a
indie
lot
wrestling in general, and it's about indie wrestling in general.
Yeah,
it has much greater reach. Now that I watched it, it reaches through much more than just being a ref.
Yeah, it's about being part of a surrogate family and why they love it and why it's meaningful to them. We'll save it for next week, but it's a really quality film. I would say it's one of the 10 best wrestling documentaries I've ever seen.
It's very well put together. Yeah. It's very well put together. Anyway, thanks so much. I will see you and everybody next week. Everyone, good to see you all. Good night.